The thing about family Thanksgiving is that the turkeys aren't the only ones getting carved. I'm Nick Ellison, 38 years old, IT manager at a mid-sized insurance firm, and I've got front row seats to what's about to become the most spectacular family implosion in suburban Massachusetts history. It started 3 weeks ago when I found the pregnancy test in Vanessa's purse. Not hidden, mind you, just sitting there like a loaded gun wrapped in pink plastic. My wife of 15 years, Vanessa Ellison, 36, HR executive extraordinaire and social media maven, had been acting stranger than usual. Cold shoulders, late-night work calls, and enough mysterious texting to make a teenager jealous. "Congratulations," I said, holding up the test when she walked into our kitchen that morning. Our house, a colonial in Newton that screams upper-middle-class desperation, felt smaller somehow. She didn't even flinch, just poured her coffee and said, "It's Alex's." My brother Alex. The golden boy. 35, owns 3 gyms, drives a Tesla, and has that effortless charm that made him homecoming king while I was building computers in my bedroom. "Deal with it," she added, like she was discussing weekend plans. Here's where it gets interesting. I congratulated her, smiled, nodded, because Alex had a vasectomy 5 years ago after his divorce, told the whole family about it at Christmas dinner, complete with ice pack jokes and way too much detail about his recovery. But I didn't mention that, not yet. Instead, I watched, observed, did what IT guys do best, gathered data. Our kids, Jamie and Lily, 13 and 10 respectively, had already picked up on the tension. Jamie, sharp as her mother but with my sarcasm, kept making cutting remarks about Mom's new friends. Lily, quieter but observant, stayed close to me, like she sensed the storm coming. The house buzzed with Thanksgiving prep. Vanessa's sister Tessa would be coming with her husband Greg, a real estate agent with the kind of oily charm that makes you want to count your fingers after shaking hands. My brother Alex promised to bring his famous stuffing, though he'd been acting weird lately, avoiding eye contact with Vanessa. 3 days before Thanksgiving, I cracked Vanessa's cloud storage. Not through some elaborate hacking. She'd used our anniversary as her password for everything. Amateur hour. What I found made my stomach turn. Videos, audio recordings, text chains that read like a soap opera written by horny teenagers. Vanessa and Greg, my sister-in-law's husband, had been carrying on for 8 months. The pregnancy was his, obviously. But they'd cooked up this scheme to pin it on Alex, knowing about his vasectomy, but betting I didn't. The texts were pure gold. "Can't wait to see Nick's face when he realizes he's raising another man's kid. Think he'll figure out it's not Alex's? Are you kidding?" Nick couldn't figure out a jigsaw puzzle with 2 pieces. That last one stung. But it also crystallized something in my mind. They thought I was stupid, weak, the kind of guy who'd just roll over and take it. They were about to learn otherwise. Vanessa's gossip crew, Carla from HR and Mindy, the neighborhood Instagram mom who documents everything, had been dropping hints for weeks. Carla kept making jokes about getting stuffed before Thanksgiving. Mindy filmed everything, always angling for the next viral moment for her mommy blog. I let them think they were clever. Meanwhile, I prepared. The morning of Thanksgiving, our house filled with the usual chaos. Alex arrived first, carrying his stuffing and a bottle of wine that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. He couldn't look at Vanessa, kept fidgeting with his phone. "You okay?" I asked him in the kitchen. "Yeah, just, family stuff." Tessa and Greg showed up an hour later. Tessa looked brittle, like she might shatter if someone spoke too loudly. Greg wore his realtor smile, all teeth, no warmth. He clapped me on the back and called me buddy, which made my skin crawl. The kids set the table while the adults pretended everything was normal. Jamie kept rolling her eyes at her mother's performance. Lily stayed in the kitchen with me, helping with the turkey. "Dad," she whispered, "why is Mom being so mean to you?" Out of the mouths of babes. "Sometimes grown-ups have problems they need to work out," I told her, which was the understatement of the century. Dinner started normally enough. Alex carved the turkey with surgical precision. Tessa picked at her food and drank wine like it was water. Greg dominated the conversation with stories about his latest real estate deals. Vanessa played the perfect hostess, all smiles and gracious comments. That's when I decided to drop the first bomb. So, Vanessa shared some exciting news, I announced, raising my wine glass. She's pregnant. The table went quiet. Alex's fork clattered onto his plate. Tessa stopped mid-sip. Greg's smile faltered for just a second. That's wonderful, Tessa managed. Isn't it? I continued, my voice perfectly level. She told me it's Alex's baby. Now Alex looked like he might throw up. Nick, I don't know what… Of course, I interrupted. That would be quite a medical miracle considering your vasectomy 5 years ago. Remember? You told us all about it, in great detail, at Christmas. The silence stretched like a rubber band about to snap. Vanessa's face had gone white. Greg was suddenly very interested in his mashed potatoes. Jamie, bless her heart, chose that moment to speak up. Mom's been texting someone named Greg a lot. She left her phone open yesterday and I saw her message about, can't wait for our next… Jamie! Vanessa snapped, but the damage was done. Tessa slowly turned to look at her husband. Greg? That's when all hell broke loose. Greg tried to laugh it off. Kids, you know how they misread things. But Tessa wasn't buying it. She'd been suspicious for months, I realized, watching her face crumble as the pieces fell into place. Show me your phone, she demanded. Tessa, come on. Show me your goddamn phone, Greg. While they argued, Vanessa tried to regain control. This is ridiculous. Nick's obviously having some kind of breakdown. Am I? I pulled out my own phone, opened the cloud storage I'd accessed. Because I've got about 8 months of text messages that say otherwise. Alex found his voice. Vanessa, please tell me this isn't what it looks like. It's exactly what it looks like, Tessa said, having grabbed Greg's phone. She was scrolling through messages, her face getting redder by the second. Oh my God! Oh my God! She started reading aloud. Missing you already. Can't wait to feel you inside me again. Her voice cracked. That's from 3 days ago, Greg. While I was at my mother's funeral. Greg made a grab for the phone, but Tessa yanked it away. That's when Carla and Mindy, who'd arrived for dessert, walked into what looked like a war zone. Ooh, family drama! Mindy immediately started filming with her phone. This is going straight to my story. Put that away, Vanessa hissed, but Mindy was already live streaming. Hey, followers! We've got a real-life Thanksgiving meltdown happening here. Carla, ever the enabler, tried to defend Vanessa. I'm sure this is all a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding? I pulled up more messages on my phone. Here's one from last week. Greg, the pregnancy test came back positive. Nick bought the Alex story completely. He's such an idiot. I looked directly at Vanessa. That one stung, by the way. Jamie, who'd been quietly absorbing everything, suddenly spoke up. Is that why you've been so mean to Dad? Because you're having someone else's baby? Jamie, go to your room, Vanessa ordered. No, I said firmly. She stays. Both kids stay. They deserve to know who their mother really is. That's when Vanessa lost it completely. You sanctimonious prick. You think you're so perfect, sitting there in your little IT world, judging everyone else. You have no idea what it's like being married to someone so boring, so predictable. Boring? I laughed, and it wasn't a pleasant sound. You want to know what's boring, Vanessa? Cheating with your sister's husband. That's the most cliched, unoriginal thing you could have done. I expected better from someone who claims to be so creative. Tessa was still reading messages, tears streaming down her face. 2 years? You've been doing this for 2 years? Greg finally tried to take control. Everyone just calm down, we can work this out. Quote, work this out? Alex stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. You got my brother's wife pregnant and tried to pin it on me. The vasectomy thing was Vanessa's idea, Greg said quickly. I told her it wouldn't work. Shut up! Vanessa screamed at him. Just shut up! But Greg was in full panic mode now. She said you'd never figure it out, Nick. Said you were too trusting, too stupid to put the pieces together. Mindy was getting it all on video, providing running commentary like a sports announcer. Oh my God, you guys, this is better than reality TV. Turn that off! Vanessa lunged for Mindy's phone, but Carla blocked her. Actually, Carla said slowly, keep recording. I think everyone should see this. I realized Carla was enjoying this. Vanessa's downfall was entertainment to her, social media gold, some friend. Tessa threw Greg's phone at him, hitting him square in the chest. Pack your bags. Tonight, I want you out of my house. Tessa, please. Get out! She screamed, then turned to Vanessa. And you? You're my sister. How could you do this to me? Vanessa had no answer for that. She stood there, caught, exposed, with nowhere to run. That's when Lily, my quiet little observer, spoke up in her small voice. Daddy, are you and Mommy getting divorced? The question hung in the air like smoke. Everyone looked at me, waiting for my answer. I don't know, sweetheart, I said honestly. But whatever happens, you and Jamie will be okay. I promise you that. Vanessa tried one last desperate play. Nick, we can fix this. Go to counseling, work things out. Fix this? I stood up, feeling calmer than I had in months. Vanessa, you're pregnant with another man's child. You tried to convince me it was my brother's. You've been lying to me for 8 months, maybe longer. What exactly do you think we can fix? Greg was edging toward the door, probably hoping to escape before things got worse. But I wasn't done with him yet. Leaving so soon, Greg? I called out. Don't you want to stick around for dessert? I made it special just for you. He stopped, suspicious. What do you mean? I smiled, and for the first time all day, it was genuine. Well, since you're so interested in my family, I thought you might want to know about the little surprise I left in your driveway. Through the window, we could see Greg's BMW, or rather, what used to be his BMW. All 4 tires were flat, and someone had spray-painted "Home Wrecker" across the windshield in bright red letters. You son of a bitch, Greg snarled, starting toward me. Careful, I warned. Mindy's still recording. You really want to assault someone on camera? Alex stepped between us. Greg, I think you should leave now. How? My car dash, quote. Call an Uber, I suggested helpfully. I hear they're very discreet about picking up cheating scumbags. Vanessa grabbed her purse and coat. I'm going with him. No, I said quietly. You're not. She stopped. Excuse me? This is my house, Vanessa. My name on the deed, my mortgage payments. You want to leave? Fine. But you're not taking my car and you're not taking my kids. They're my kids too. Jamie looked up from her phone where she'd been typing furiously. Actually, Mom, I just posted everything on TikTok. It's already got 300 likes. Vanessa's face went ashen. You did what? Posted about your affair. With Uncle Greg and the fake pregnancy thing. Thanksgiving drama is trending now. I had to admit I was proud of my daughter's social media savvy. Mindy was practically vibrating with excitement. This is going to get so many views. Can I interview you, Nick? Maybe later, I said. Right now, I think Greg and Vanessa need to figure out their transportation situation. Greg was already on his phone, probably calling for a ride. Vanessa stood frozen in the middle of the chaos, her perfect Thanksgiving destroyed, her secrets exposed, her reputation in tatters. This isn't over, she said finally. I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt nothing but pity. Yes, it is. As they waited for their ride, the rest of us cleaned up the dinner dishes in uncomfortable silence. Tessa helped, tears still flowing. Alex kept apologizing, even though none of this was his fault. The kids processed everything with the resilience that never ceases to amaze me about children. When the Uber finally arrived, Greg slunk out without another word. Vanessa paused at the door. Nick, Don't, I said. Just don't. She left, and the house felt lighter somehow, like a toxic cloud had finally lifted. But I knew this was just the beginning. Vanessa wouldn't go quietly, and Greg had too much to lose to just disappear. They'd regroup, plan their next move, try to turn this around somehow. I was counting on it. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. Jamie's TikTok had gone viral overnight, 2 million views and climbing. The hashtag Thanksgiving drama was trending nationally, with people sharing their own family disaster stories. But more importantly, my phone was buzzing with messages from people I hadn't heard from in months. Friends, colleagues, even my ex-girlfriend from college, all expressing shock and support. It seemed like everyone had suspected something was wrong with my marriage, except me. The kids were handling everything better than expected. Jamie had become a minor social media celebrity overnight, fielding interview requests from local news stations. Lily was quieter but seemed relieved that the pretending was over. "Dad," she said over breakfast, "are you sad about Mom?" I considered the question carefully. I'm sad about what our family used to be, but I'm not sad about finding out the truth. "Good," she said simply, then went back to her cereal. Around 10 a.m., my lawyer called. Patricia Chen, sharp, experienced, and recommended by 3 divorced guys from work. I'd contacted her the day after finding Vanessa's texts, hoping I'd never need her services, but preparing for the worst. "Nick, I've been watching the news. How are you holding up?" "Better than expected." "What do I need to know?" "Well, the good news is that everything's been documented publicly. Adultery doesn't affect property division in Massachusetts, but it certainly helps with custody. The bad news is that Vanessa's going to fight dirty." She was right. By noon, Vanessa had hired her own attorney and was already spinning the narrative. According to her Facebook post, I was an abusive, controlling husband who had orchestrated a public humiliation to destroy her reputation. She painted herself as the victim of a loveless marriage, driven to seek comfort elsewhere. The post got exactly 12 likes, mostly from people who didn't know the full story yet. The comment section was brutal. "Didn't you cheat on him with your sister's husband? Girl, you got caught. Own it. This is what happens when you mess around." Actions have consequences. But Vanessa wasn't done. That afternoon, she showed up at my office with Greg and a man I didn't recognize. Tall, expensive suit, briefcase, lawyer, obviously. My boss, Dave Morrison, called me into his office. "Nick, there are some people here to see you. They say it's urgent." I found them in the conference room, looking like they'd come to negotiate a hostile takeover. Vanessa had cleaned up, put on her professional mask, but I could see the desperation underneath. "Nick," she began, "we need to talk. I think we said everything yesterday, in front of 2 million people." The lawyer, his name was Richard Steinberg, according to his business card, cleared his throat. "Mr. Ellison, my clients are prepared to make you a very generous offer." "I'm listening." "Full custody of the children, the house, and a significant financial settlement. In exchange, you issue a public apology for yesterday's incident and refrain from any further public statements about my client's relationship." I almost laughed. "You want me to apologize for exposing your affair?" "You humiliated them publicly," Steinberg said. "That could be considered intentional infliction of emotional distress. They humiliated themselves. I just provided the platform." Greg finally spoke up. "Look, Nick, we all made mistakes." "We?" I cut him off. "What mistake did I make? Trusting my wife? Believing my family?" "You destroyed my car." "Prove it." He couldn't, of course. I'd been careful about that. No security cameras in his driveway, and I'd worn gloves. Not that it mattered. A few flat tires and some spray paint hardly qualified as serious vandalism. Vanessa tried a different approach. "Think about the kids, Nick. They don't need to see their parents fighting in the media." "You should have thought about that before you started screwing your sister's husband." Steinberg shuffled his papers. "My clients are also prepared to seek an emergency custody order, claiming you're an unfit parent due to your recent erratic behavior." That got my attention. Erratic behavior? The public humiliation, the property damage, the social media campaign against my clients. What social media campaign? I haven't posted anything. That was all Jamie, and she's 13. Kids process trauma differently than adults. Nevertheless, the pattern suggests that I found out my wife was cheating and reacted like any normal human being would. If you want to call that erratic, go ahead. But good luck convincing a judge that exposing adultery makes me unfit. The meeting went downhill from there. Vanessa made increasingly desperate threats, Greg tried to play the victim, and Steinberg threw around legal terms that didn't actually apply to our situation. Finally, I'd had enough. "Here's my counteroffer," I said, standing up. "Vanessa moves out by the weekend. We file for divorce based on adultery. I get primary custody, she gets supervised visitation until the baby's born and we can establish paternity. Greg pays for the damage to his own car, since he's the one who caused this whole mess." "That's ridiculous," Steinberg sputtered. "That's reality. You came here thinking you could intimidate me into silence. But here's what you don't understand. I'm not the same guy I was yesterday. Yesterday's Nick would have taken whatever deal you offered just to avoid conflict. Today's Nick has nothing left to lose." I walked toward the door, then turned back. "Oh, and Vanessa? If you try to take my kids, I'll release every text message, every photo, and every video I found in your cloud storage. Think about how that'll play on social media." Her face went white. She'd forgotten about the videos. After they left, Dave called me back into his office. "Everything okay?" "Getting better every day." "Good, because HR wants to talk to you about Vanessa's allegations." I wasn't surprised. Vanessa worked in HR at a different company, but she had connections throughout the industry. She'd probably tried to get me fired, claiming I was unstable or dangerous. The meeting with HR was brief. They'd already seen Jamie's TikTok and Mindy's livestream. The evidence spoke for itself. I'd been the victim, not the aggressor. They offered me a few days off to deal with family matters, which I gratefully accepted. That evening, I sat down with the kids to plan our next move. Jamie was still riding high on her viral fame, fielding messages from friends and strangers alike. Lily was quieter but seemed more relaxed than she'd been in months. "So what happens now?" Jamie asked. "Now we figure out how to be a family without Mom." "Will she come back?" I considered lying, giving them false hope, but they deserved the truth. "I don't think so, sweetheart. And honestly, I don't think we'd want her to." Lily nodded solemnly. "She was mean to you. Sometimes people change, and not always for the better. But that's not your fault, and it's not mine either. Sometimes things just don't work out." That night, after the kids went to bed, I sat in my home office and planned my next move. Vanessa and Greg thought they could control the narrative, paint themselves as victims of my erratic behavior. They thought they could intimidate me into silence, make me disappear quietly while they rode off into the sunset together. They were wrong. I opened my laptop and started typing. If they wanted a social media war, I'd give them one. But I wouldn't stoop to their level. No lies, no manipulation, just the truth. The whole truth, backed up by screenshots and documentation. I titled the post, "What Really Happened at Thanksgiving, A Father's Story." It was going to be a long night. My blog post went live at midnight and exploded across social media faster than I'd expected. Within 6 hours, it had been shared 50,000 times. News outlets started calling by 7 a.m., wanting interviews. The local morning show sent a van to my house. I'd kept it factual, chronological, and devastating. Screenshots of text messages, timeline of events, even Greg's real estate license number so people could look up his professional record. I didn't editorialize or call names. I just laid out the evidence and let readers draw their own conclusions. The response was overwhelming. Messages of support poured in from strangers, friends, and even some of Vanessa's former colleagues who shared their own stories about her workplace behavior. Apparently, my wife had a reputation for throwing people under the bus to advance her own career. But the most surprising response came from Tessa. She called around 8 a.m. crying, "Nick, I'm so sorry. I should have said something months ago. I suspected, but I didn't want to believe it." "It's not your fault, Tessa. I found more messages on Greg's laptop. They were planning to take your house, Nick. They had this whole scheme worked out. Get you declared an unfit parent, force a sale, split the proceeds. Greg already had a buyer lined up." My blood ran cold. "What buyer?" "Some investment company. Greg was going to get both sides of the commission." The pieces clicked into place. This wasn't just an affair, it was a long-term con. They'd been planning to destroy my life and profit from the wreckage. Tessa, I need you to send me those messages. Already done. Check your email. The messages she forwarded were even worse than I'd imagined. Greg and Vanessa had been planning this for months, maybe longer. They'd researched custody law, property division, even looked into having me committed for mental health issues. The pregnancy was supposed to be the final nail in the coffin, proof that I couldn't satisfy my wife, that our marriage was irreparably broken. They'd underestimated two things: my intelligence and my capacity for revenge. I forwarded everything to Patricia Chen, then called her office. Patricia, we need to file an emergency motion. They were planning to steal my house. I'll have the paperwork ready by noon. Nick, this changes everything. We're not just talking about divorce anymore. This could be criminal fraud. While I was on the phone with my lawyer, Jamie came downstairs with her laptop. Dad, you need to see this. She'd been monitoring social media all morning, tracking the story's spread, but now there was a new development. Vanessa had posted a response. It was a masterpiece of manipulation, painting herself as a battered woman who'd finally found the courage to leave an abusive marriage. She claimed I'd been controlling, isolating her from friends and family, monitoring her communications. The affair with Greg was presented as her only escape from a toxic situation. She's good, I admitted. I'll give her that. But Jamie was smiling. Keep reading. The comments section told a different story. People weren't buying it. They'd seen the evidence, watched the videos, read the text messages. Vanessa's reputation was in free fall, and her desperate attempt to rewrite history was only making things worse. Look at this one. Jamie pointed to a comment from someone named Sarah Martinez. I worked with Vanessa at Henderson Corporation. She tried this same victim routine when she got caught stealing credit for my project. Classic narcissist behavior. More former colleagues chimed in with similar stories. A pattern emerged of manipulation, backstabbing, and playing the victim whenever she got caught. My wife wasn't just an adulterer, she was a serial manipulator who'd finally been exposed. Around noon, Patricia called with an update. The emergency motion is filed. I've also contacted the district attorney's office about the fraud scheme. They're interested. What does that mean? It means Greg and Vanessa might be facing criminal charges. Conspiracy to commit fraud at minimum. If they actually tried to have you committed under false pretenses, we could be looking at more serious charges. The afternoon brought more surprises. Alex showed up with lunch and moral support, still apologizing for getting dragged into their scheme. Then Carla called, Vanessa's former friend and enabler. Nick, I need to tell you something about Vanessa's job. What about it? She got fired yesterday. After your blog post went viral, her company started getting calls. Turns out she's been having affairs with married colleagues for years. HR couldn't ignore it anymore. So Vanessa was unemployed, homeless, and pregnant with a married man's child. Her reputation was destroyed, her support network had abandoned her, and she was facing potential criminal charges. I should have felt satisfied. Instead, I felt empty. That evening, as I was helping Lily with homework, the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I could see Vanessa standing on the porch, alone. She looked terrible, pale, disheveled, like she hadn't slept in days. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. Nick, please, we need to talk. I think we've said everything we need to say. The kids need their mother. The kids need stability. Something you've never provided. She started crying, and for a moment I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. I made mistakes, okay? But I'm still their mother. You can't just erase me from their lives. I'm not erasing you. You erased yourself when you chose Greg over your family. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. How was it supposed to happen, Vanessa? You and Greg were going to steal my house, take my kids, and have me committed. How exactly was that supposed to work out? She looked genuinely surprised that I knew about their plan. Nick, I never... Don't lie to me anymore. Please, we're past that. Jamie appeared behind me, having heard voices. Hi, Mom! Hi, baby, I miss you so much. I miss you too, Jamie said, and I could hear the pain in her voice. But I can't trust you anymore. That broke something in Vanessa. She collapsed onto the porch steps, sobbing. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen." "But it did happen," I said quietly, "and now we all have to live with the consequences." I sat down beside her, maintaining distance but offering what comfort I could. "Vanessa, you need help. Real help. Not from lawyers or enablers, but from professionals who can help you figure out why you do these things. Will you wait for me, if I get help?" I looked at this woman I'd loved for 15 years, the mother of my children, and felt nothing but sadness. "No. We're done. But if you get help, really get help, maybe we can figure out how to co-parent effectively." She nodded, wiping her eyes. "What about the baby?" "That's between you and Greg. I wish you both the best, but it's not my responsibility." After she left, Jamie and I sat on the porch in the cool November air. "Are you okay, Dad?" "I think so. Are you?" "Yeah, I mean, it sucks, but at least the lying is over." Smart kid. She'd inherited her mother's intelligence, but thankfully not her moral flexibility. The next few days passed in a blur of legal meetings, media interviews, and attempts to return to normal life. The criminal investigation into Greg and Vanessa's scheme was moving forward. Greg had been suspended from his real estate license pending review. Vanessa was living in a motel, supported by rapidly dwindling savings. Their plan had backfired spectacularly. Instead of destroying me, they'd destroyed themselves. But I wasn't done yet. There was one more move to make, one final piece of the puzzle that would ensure they could never threaten my family again. It was time for the endgame. 2 weeks after the original Thanksgiving disaster, I decided to host a follow-up dinner. Not for reconciliation, that ship had sailed and sunk, but for closure. I invited everyone who'd been there for the original meltdown. Alex, Tessa, even Mindy and Carla. The kids helped plan the menu, excited to have a normal family dinner for once. I didn't invite Vanessa or Greg, but I knew they'd show up anyway. Desperate people do desperate things, and they were running out of options. The criminal investigation was gaining momentum. The district attorney had found evidence of wire fraud related to Greg's real estate scheme. Vanessa faced charges of conspiracy and attempted fraud. Their lawyers were pushing for plea deals, but the DA wasn't interested in lenient terms. Meanwhile, Jamie had become something of a social media sensation. Her original TikTok had spawned dozens of follow-up videos, interviews with teen magazines, and even a book deal offer. She was handling fame better than most adults, using her platform to talk about family dysfunction and the importance of honesty. Lily remained quieter, but more confident. Without her mother's constant criticism and manipulation, she was blossoming. Her teachers commented on the improvement in her schoolwork and social interactions. As for me, I was discovering who I was without Vanessa's influence. 15 years of marriage had changed me, worn down my edges, made me smaller. Now I was remembering the person I'd been before, confident, decisive, unafraid of conflict. The doorbell rang at exactly 6 p.m. Through the window, I could see Vanessa and Greg standing on the porch, looking like defendants arriving at court. They'd cleaned up since I'd last seen them, but there was a desperate quality to their appearance that makeup couldn't hide. I opened the door. "I didn't invite you." "We need to talk," Vanessa said. "All of us, as a family." "We're not family anymore." Greg stepped forward. "Nick, this has gone far enough. The criminal charges, the media circus, it's destroying everyone." "You destroyed everyone. I'm just documenting the wreckage." But I let them in, curious to see what final card they thought they could play. The dining room fell silent when they entered. Alex looked uncomfortable, Tessa looked furious, and Mindy immediately started filming. Carla, who'd been trying to distance herself from Vanessa since the scandal broke, suddenly found her wine glass fascinating. "Sit down," I said. "Let's get this over with." Vanessa took her old seat at the table, a gesture that felt both familiar and wrong. Greg sat beside her, trying to project confidence but fooling no one. "First," I said, "let me share some updates. The DA's office called this morning. They're moving forward with fraud charges against both of you. Greg, you're looking at 5 to 7 years. Vanessa, probably 3 to 5 as an accessory. Their faces went white. Second, the divorce papers have been filed. Adultery, abandonment, and fraud. I'm asking for full custody, and given recent developments, I'll probably get it. Nick, Vanessa started. Third, I continued, I've been contacted by several of your former victims. Apparently, this isn't your first time running this kind of scheme. There's a whole support group of people you've screwed over. That wasn't entirely true, but their reactions told me I was close to the mark. Tessa spoke up. Greg, I want you to explain something. I found divorce papers in your desk drawer, dated 6 months ago. Were you planning to leave me before or after you stole Nick's house? Greg's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Tessa, I can explain. Explain what? That you were going to divorce me, steal my brother-in-law's house, and run off with my sister? That you've been planning this for months while I was taking care of your mother through her cancer treatment? I hadn't known about Greg's mother. The timing made their betrayal even more callous. Jamie chose that moment to speak up. Mom, I have a question. Vanessa turned to her daughter with desperate hope. Yes, sweetheart. When you were texting Greg about Dad being stupid and boring, did you think about how that would make us feel? Like, did you consider that we might see those messages someday? The question hung in the air like a blade. Vanessa had no good answer. Because, Jamie continued, I've been thinking about it a lot. And I realized that if you could say those things about Dad, who never did anything but love you, what must you really think about us? Jamie, I love you and your sister more than anything. Do you? Because love means protecting people, right? And you didn't protect us from this. You created this. Lily, emboldened by her sister's courage, added, You made Dad sad all the time. I could see it, even when you thought I wasn't looking. Vanessa started crying again, but this time it felt performative. She'd used tears as a weapon for so long that even genuine emotion seemed calculated. Greg tried to take control of the narrative. Look, everyone makes mistakes. Yes, we handled this badly, but we can still work something out. Quote, work something out? Alex stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. You tried to frame me for getting your wife pregnant. You planned to steal my brother's house. You destroyed 2 families for money. What exactly do you think we should work out? The criminal charges are excessive. The criminal charges are appropriate, I said calmly. You committed crimes. Now you face consequences. That's how the world works. Mindy was getting everything on video, providing running commentary for her followers. The live stream had over 10,000 viewers, all watching the final collapse of Greg and Vanessa's schemes. This is insane, Greg said, standing up abruptly. You people are acting like we committed murder. You committed something worse, Tessa said quietly. You committed betrayal. Murder is a crime of passion. What you did was calculated, planned, deliberate. You looked at people who loved you and decided to destroy them for profit. Tessa, don't say my name. Don't ever say my name again. Greg looked around the table, seeing no allies, no sympathy, no escape route. Fine. You want to destroy us? Go ahead. But don't pretend you're the good guys here. Nick, you humiliated us publicly. You could have handled this privately, but you chose to make it a spectacle. I considered his words. You're right. I could have handled this privately. I could have quietly divorced Vanessa, let you 2 run off together, pretended none of this happened. But you know what? I'm glad I didn't. Why? Because now everyone knows who you really are. Your future victims will Google your names and find this story. Your scheme won't work on the next family because they'll see what happened to us. Vanessa made one last desperate play. The kids need their mother, Nick. Whatever you think of me, they need me in their lives. They need a mother, I agreed. But they need one who puts their well-being above her own desires. They need one who tells the truth, keeps promises, protects them from harm. You've proven you're not that person. People can change, then change. Get therapy, take responsibility, make amends, but do it on your own time, not mine. The dinner ended with Greg and Vanessa leaving in defeat, their final schemes exhausted, their options depleted. The rest of us finished our meal in relative peace, processing the end of a nightmare that had consumed our lives for months. Later that evening, after everyone had gone home and the kids were asleep, I sat in my kitchen with a cup of coffee and reflected on the journey. 6 months ago, I'd been a different person, trusting, naive, willing to overlook red flags for the sake of peace. That person was gone, replaced by someone harder but more honest, someone who wouldn't be taken advantage of again. My phone buzzed with a text from Patricia Chen. DA accepted their plea deals. Greg gets 4 years, Vanessa gets 2+ probation. It's over. I typed back, "Thank you for everything." But I knew it wasn't really over. There would be custody hearings, property division, years of co-parenting with someone I no longer trusted. The kids would need therapy to process their mother's betrayal. I'd need to learn how to be a single parent while rebuilding my own life. Still, for the first time in months, I felt hopeful. The truth was out, the lies were exposed, and justice was being served. My family, what was left of it, could finally move forward. I finished my coffee and went upstairs to check on the kids. They were both sleeping peacefully, no longer burdened by the tension that had filled our house for so long. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight we were safe, we were honest, we were free. And that was enough. The plea hearing was scheduled for the Tuesday before Christmas, giving Greg and Vanessa one last chance to minimize their punishment. Their lawyers had negotiated reduced sentences in exchange for full confessions and restitution, but they still had to face a judge and formally admit their crimes. I wasn't required to attend, but I wouldn't have missed it for the world. The courthouse was packed with media, curious onlookers, and people whose lives had been touched by the story. Jamie's TikTok had evolved into a documentary series about family dysfunction that was being optioned by Netflix. Mindy had parlayed her live streams into a book deal and podcast. Even I had been approached by publishers interested in my perspective. But today wasn't about fame or profit. Today was about justice. Greg went first, standing before Judge Martinez with his lawyer beside him. He looked smaller somehow, diminished by months of legal pressure and public scrutiny. His real estate license had been permanently revoked, his marriage was over, and his reputation was destroyed. "Mr. Green," Judge Martinez said, "you're pleading guilty to conspiracy to commit fraud, wire fraud, and attempted extortion. Do you understand the charges?" "Yes, Your Honor." "And do you admit that you conspired with Vanessa Ellison to defraud her husband of his property and parental rights?" Greg's voice was barely audible. "Yes, Your Honor." "Speak up, Mr. Green." "Yes, Your Honor. I conspired with Vanessa Ellison to defraud Nicholas Ellison of his property and parental rights." The judge sentenced him to 4 years in federal prison, with the possibility of parole after 2 years. Greg's shoulders sagged as the bailiff led him away. Tessa, who'd been watching from the gallery, showed no emotion. She'd already filed for divorce and moved back to her maiden name. Then it was Vanessa's turn. She'd lost weight during the months of legal proceedings, and her pregnancy was now showing. The baby, Greg's baby, was due in March. She'd be giving birth in prison. "Ms. Ellison," Judge Martinez said, "you're pleading guilty to conspiracy to commit fraud and accessory after the fact. Do you understand these charges?" "Yes, Your Honor." "And do you admit that you conspired to defraud your husband and manipulate custody proceedings for financial gain?" Vanessa glanced back at me, then at the kids sitting in the front row. Jamie was filming everything for her documentary. Lily held my hand tightly. "Yes, Your Honor. I conspired to defraud my husband and manipulate custody proceedings for financial gain. 2 years in minimum security prison, with work release after 18 months. She'd served most of her sentence at a facility that accommodated pregnant inmates and new mothers." As the bailiff led her away, Vanessa looked back one more time. I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, no satisfaction. Just emptiness where 15 years of marriage used to be. Outside the courthouse, reporters surrounded us. Jamie handled the media attention like a professional, giving thoughtful answers about the importance of honesty and the resilience of families in crisis. Lily stayed close to me, overwhelmed by the attention, but proud of her sister's poise. "Mr. Ellison," one reporter called out, "do you feel justice has been served?" I considered the question. Justice isn't about revenge. It's about consequences. My ex-wife and her accomplice faced consequences for their actions. My children learned that truth matters more than comfort. I learned that I'm stronger than I thought. So yes, I think justice has been served. "What's next for your family?" "We're going to Disney World," Jamie said, grinning. "Dad promised us a vacation once all this legal stuff was over." The crowd laughed, and I realized my daughter had just delivered the perfect soundbite. She was going to do well in whatever career she chose. The months that followed were a blur of adjustment and healing. The kids thrived in therapy, processing their mother's betrayal with remarkable resilience. I learned to be both mother and father, attending dance recitals and soccer games, helping with homework and heartbreak. Vanessa wrote letters from prison, apologizing and asking for forgiveness. I read them, but didn't respond. The kids could decide for themselves whether to maintain contact with their mother. Jamie wrote back occasionally. Lily didn't. Greg served his sentence quietly, avoiding media attention. Tessa moved across the country for a fresh start, sending Christmas cards but keeping her distance from the chaos that had consumed her family. Alex and I grew closer, bonding over the shared trauma of betrayal. He helped with the kids, fixed things around the house, and provided the male role model they needed while I figured out single parenthood. The house felt different without Vanessa's presence, lighter, more peaceful. We redecorated, removing traces of our old life and creating something new. The kids chose bright colors for their rooms, hung up artwork and achievement certificates, made the space truly theirs. I started dating again, cautiously at first, then with growing confidence. The experience with Vanessa had taught me to trust my instincts, to value honesty over harmony, to recognize red flags before they became disasters. Jamie's documentary was picked up by a streaming service and became a cultural phenomenon, sparking conversations about family dynamics, social media, and the cost of betrayal. She donated part of her earnings to organizations supporting children of divorce, using her platform for positive change. Lily discovered a talent for writing, channeling her experiences into stories and poems that showed wisdom beyond her years. Her therapist said creative expression was helping her process trauma and build emotional resilience. As for me, I learned that surviving betrayal doesn't make you bitter. It makes you selective. I became more careful about who I trusted, but also more confident in my judgment. The experience stripped away illusions and revealed core truths about character, loyalty, and love. 1 year after the original Thanksgiving disaster, we hosted a small dinner with Alex, Tessa, who flew in for the occasion, and a few close friends. The conversation was honest, the laughter genuine, the gratitude real. "Dad," Lily said as we cleaned up afterward, "are you happy now?" I looked around the kitchen, dishes in the sink, leftover turkey in the fridge, my daughters arguing about whose turn it was to load the dishwasher. It was chaotic and imperfect and absolutely beautiful. "Yes, sweetheart, I'm happy." And I was. Not because I'd gotten revenge on the people who'd betrayed me, but because I'd learned to build something better from the wreckage they'd left behind. The truth had set us free, but more importantly, it had made us strong. 2 years later, I received a letter from Vanessa's parole officer. She was being released early for good behavior and wanted to arrange supervised visits with the kids. The baby, a boy named David, was healthy and living with Greg's sister while his parents served their sentences. I discussed it with Jamie and Lily, now 15 and 12, old enough to make their own decisions about their mother. Jamie was curious but cautious. Lily was uninterested but not opposed if her sister wanted to try. "It's up to you," I told them. "But remember, people can change, but they usually don't. Be careful, be honest about your feelings, and don't feel guilty about protecting yourselves." The first supervised visit was awkward but not hostile. Vanessa looked older, worn down by prison and motherhood and the consequences of her choices. She asked about school, friends, activities, surface-level conversation that avoided deeper truths. "I'm sorry," she said as the visit ended. "I know that doesn't fix anything, but I am sorry." "Sorry doesn't undo the damage," Jamie replied, "but it's a start." Lily just nodded, still processing emotions too complex for words. As we drove home, I felt proud of my daughter's maturity, their ability to extend grace without sacrificing self-protection. They'd learned hard lessons about trust and forgiveness, but they'd learned them well. That night, as I tucked Lily into bed, she asked, "Do you think Mom really changed?" "I think she's trying to change. Whether she succeeds is up to her. Do you forgive her?" I considered the question carefully. I don't hate her anymore. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or trusting again. It just means I'm not letting her mistakes control my life. She nodded solemnly, then smiled. "I love our family the way it is now." "Me too, sweetheart, me too." The next morning brought news that would close the final chapter of our ordeal. Greg had been released from prison and immediately violated his parole by attempting to contact me through social media. He was arrested and sent back to serve the remainder of his sentence. Some people never learn? But we had learned. We'd learned that betrayal reveals character, both in those who betray and those who survive it. We'd learned that truth is more valuable than peace, that honesty is more important than harmony. Most importantly, we'd learned that family isn't just about blood or marriage vows. It's about the people who show up, who tell the truth, who choose love even when it's difficult. As I watched my daughters grow into strong, confident young women, I knew that our story, painful as it had been, had taught them lessons that would serve them well. They would never be naive about human nature, but they would never be cynical about love. They would trust carefully but completely, forgive thoughtfully but thoroughly, and never settle for relationships that required them to compromise their fundamental worth. That was Vanessa's final gift to us, not the betrayal itself, but the strength we'd found in surviving it. The truth had indeed set us free,